Governments need to keep up control measures like telling people to wash their hands, maintain social distance, and wear masks. Dr. Michael Ryan of the WHO.
What it has clearly demonstrated is you take the pressure off the virus bounces back. That's the reality, that's the fact.
Hopkins says the U.S. still has the highest infection rate in the world at over 5 million.
Fox's Jill Nadeau at his White House coronavirus briefing on Monday. President Trump upbeat about treatments.
I think we'll have a vaccine before the end of the year, very substantially, and we may have a therapeutic resolvement very quickly.
The briefing was interrupted for several minutes when shots were fired outside the White House. Fox's John Roberts heard them.
It was about 10 minutes to 6. I was out on the North Lawn and heard what sounded like 2 gunshots. A male subject and a Secret Service officer were both transported to a local hospital. And no time during this incident was the White House complex breached or were any of the protectees in danger.
The 51-year-old man who was shot by the Secret Service is expected to recover. Seattle's police chief Carmen Best telling her officers she's resigning after the city council votes to cut the department's budget and slash the chief's pay.
This is someone who has served this city with honor for 30 years, who rose up through the ranks of this police department and has a tremendous amount of respect from rank and file officers and to community members.
That's reporter Brandy Cruz of Fox Q13 in Seattle. America is listening to Fox News.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Mezcla Dos opened its doors in 2010 and has been proudly serving the people of Guam for 10 amazing years. In celebration of their 10th anniversary, Mezcla Dos will be offering 20% off on all burgers for a limited time only. Terms and conditions apply. Please call them at 646-6295 for more information or visit them at their Upper Tumon location right across Kmart. Thank you, Guam, for making Mezcla Dos one of your favorite hamburger spots.
Presumed Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden has reportedly narrowed the list of candidates to be his running mate.
There are 3 leading contenders. Early frontrunner Kamala Harris. Her stock dropped slightly following loyalty questions following her attacks on Biden during the first Democratic debate. Also, California Congresswoman Karen Bass, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. She recently tried to clarify her position on Cuba and Fidel Castro. The Trump campaign has zeroed in on her past trips. And former National Security Advisor Susan Rice. She sold her Netflix shares last week, causing speculation she's getting closer to the top. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Tammy Duckworth are also still in the running, along with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Experts think Biden's choice will both shape the future of the party and be the smallest possible target for President Trump.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich reports the announcement is expected midweek. One person was killed, 6 others seriously injured when a suspected natural gas explosion destroyed several row houses in Baltimore on Monday. Firefighters were picking through the rubble to make sure there were no other victims. The U.S. is following through on its threat to delist from U.S. stock exchanges Chinese companies that don't comply with U.S. accounting standards. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin telling Monday's White House briefing.
We did make the recommendation, and the SEC will be putting out, yes, as of the end of next year, if they do not fully comply, and that's Chinese companies, any other companies, they all have to comply with the same exact accounting, where they will be delisted on the exchanges.
Specifically, the administration trying to crack down on Chinese companies who are prevented by the Chinese government from releasing audit information. On Wall Street Monday, the Dow continued its winning streak into 7 sessions, gaining 357 points. The S&P 500 added 9 points, but the Nasdaq was down 42. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Hi, welcome to at Chili's.
We have lunch selection starting at $9. Choose from a variety of mouth-watering entrees like our old-timer with cheese, ranchero chicken tacos, or the half-rack baby back ribs. All lunch selections are served with a refreshing bottomless Coca-Cola beverage. Experience the bold flavors at a great price with Chili's lunch selection starting at $9. Available Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Located in the Two Monsign's Plaza, second floor. Chili's, savor the moment.
Half a day. This is Michelle from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years. Tall Tales is also brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. As usual, the show starts with the Second Amendment. And today I've got a little squib here that I picked up from Town Hall. And it's Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise offer a stark warning about America's Second Amendment rights. New York Attorney General Letitia James has gone after the National Rifle Association in an attempt to get the civil rights organization dissolved. According to House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, Jones' move isn't about the NRA specifically, but about an overall agenda to silence conservatives. This lady, the Attorney General of New York, has been trying to shut the IRA down since she came into office. She's literally trying to weaponize her office to waste taxpayer money to go after a political vendetta that she's had against the NRA. And she's made statements to that point long before there were any kind of allegations of wrongdoing. Scalise explained to Judge Jeanine Pirro, who you've seen on Fox News if you watch Fox News. If you don't watch Fox News, why aren't you watching Fox News? But that's another story. But here's an example of a prosecutor looking to put somebody away before they even see a crime, and she just wants to shut down the NRA. That's not what taxpayer dollars are supposed to be used for. It's an abuse of her office. Congressman Jim Jordan, who appeared on Justice alongside Scalise, said James' play is part of the same whole playbook. He cited the 2012 election and the Democrats using the IRS to target conservatives. In 2016, it was the Department of Justice that spied on the Trump campaign. The only thing the left wants people to do is protest. They don't want you to go to church. They don't want you to go to work. They don't want you to go to school. And now they're trying to come after your Second Amendment liberties as well. Jordan explained, the same old left. According to Jordan, the gun control agenda is one of the reasons to make sure Donald Trump is reelected in November. Even though Scalise was a victim of gun violence during the 2017 congressional baseball shooting, he credited officers with firearms for saving his life and the lives of those on the field. He said his example is proof that people use firearms every single day to defend themselves and their loved ones. I'm passionate about people's Second Amendment rights, and in fact, people with guns who saved my life and everybody else who was on the ball field, because it was just the gunman with the gun. And look, as Jim Jordan pointed out, the left has been wanting to take away our guns for a long time. This isn't just about taking away our Second Amendment rights. It's about targeting conservatives, the congressman warned. If there weren't people with guns, it wouldn't be here. And neither would a lot of other people. Excuse me, I wouldn't be here, and neither would a lot of other people. And every day in America, people use guns to save their lives, Scalise said. Look, they want to defund the police, and they think about what that means. If you're at your house, just you and your family, and there's no police around, and they've defunded the police like New York and Minneapolis are doing, if somebody comes to your house, who's there to protect you? It's you with your family with the gun. We better fight to protect our Second Amendment rights and don't let the left take it away. Joe Biden wants to take our guns away, and he's letting these people run his agenda. Democrats have long used gun control as one of their many litmus tests. And I've remarked before that gun control and a woman's right to choose are a couple of examples of dog whistle politics for Democrats and Republicans. When Democrats and Republicans hear the words Second Amendment and guns rights, it's like the dog whistle. You can't hear it, but all of the dogs in the neighborhood are howling. Democrats, as you were, the Second Amendment in their eyes, that is in the eyes of the Democrats, means Americans are only allowed to have a musket. Owning multiple firearms wouldn't exist. And having the protection, the ability to protect yourself would be a thing of the past. Well, that's one of the reasons I read the Second Amendment every day. Just to remind everyone out there in our international radio listening audience how important it is. Okay, let's go next to Zemi Ikotny. And as usual, I start out with the Daily News, boilerplate from USA Today, and the plutonium nightmare. Do you know what plutonium is for, real Joe Cruz?
I believe it's an element, sir, on the table. It's for making nuclear weapons.
It's for making
energy.
Exactly. It's for making nuclear weapons. So Steve Olson here says it's time to end the plutonium nightmare. He's another one of these disarmament guys. Wouldn't we all be a lot better off if we didn't have these nuclear weapons? And, of course, the answer to that is correct. But so often these folks on the left say, when they say that, what they're saying is, shouldn't we get rid of ours? And if we get rid of ours, won't everybody else get rid of theirs too? It's only fair. I'm not going to spend any time on getting on the end of the plutonium nightmare. I'll go on to the Post. The private sector has shown good examples of how to be transparent on Wuhan virus exposure. Over the past several days, we've seen several businesses do the right thing for the public and their customers as we as a community continue to struggle with the Wuhan virus cases. One of the latest to do this right is Paradise Fitness. The business announced to the public on Sunday that its gym in Daejeon was visited by a person who tested positive for Wuhan virus. The person, according to the gym's social media, visited the facility on August 3, 4 and 5 from 6:30 to 8 p.m. The fitness center stated the Department of Public Health and Social Services urges all who believe they may have been exposed to contact DPHSS and get tested. We don't get these very specific details from DPHSS. So for businesses like Paradise Fitness to share this information with the public shows a courageous commitment to transparency and the well-being of our community. The gym further assured the public that all of its employees at the Dadido location were getting tested, and the business is reaching out to gym members who were in the facility at the indicated dates and times. They're reaching out, Real Joe Cruz. That's so touching, isn't it?
It's sweet, sir.
Yeah. Instead of just contacting them, no. They're not going to just they're reaching out.
It's so much more personable.
Yeah. So much more empathetic to reach out for someone. Yeah. So, okay, well, that's what they're doing at Paradise Fitness. Public Health has given us an all too familiar line that releasing details would be a violation of the federal health privacy law. But there have been instances when Public Health has made entire video productions of Wuhan virus patients who have recovered. So we know the department can do better. When the public is armed with better information, we are aware of what we need to do to keep ourselves, our families, and our community safe. Now, do you think the Department of Public Health and Social Services might be able to provide better information to the public now, Real Joe Cruz?
Maybe.
What is different at the Department of Public Health and Social Services?
You have a special programs or projects.
Yeah.
Special projects coordinator.
Yeah.
It's highly skilled in communicating.
Yeah.
And not communicating.
So I suspect that Janella may be running around all over the Department of Public Health and Social Services, pulling the plug on every muting device. Yeah. More information empowers us to be mindful of how we will practice safeguards for our health. Prior to Paradise Fitness disclosure, Bank of Guam, Proa Restaurant, Select Care, and certain other businesses had no qualms about sharing to the public that they'd been affected by Wuhan virus, and they've done the proper safety and sanitation protocols. This disease will linger for an indefinite period of time. More businesses whose services involve a lot of interactions with customers need to be upfront with the public. Transparency helps ease the public's concerns, and eliminating the stigma of Wuhan virus exposure can only help us in the aim to cautiously and strategically work toward returning to near normal lives. What's another word for normal times, Real Joe Cruz?
Normality, sir.
Normality. And what's a word that should never cross our lips?
Normalcy.
Exactly. Very good, Real Joe Cruz. I hope you got the folks on the Ray Gibson show kind of straightened out on that.
I think they are now, sir.
Yeah, because I heard Ray Gibson actually kind of took issue with your tutoring one day.
Yeah, yeah.
Which reminds me, I was listening this morning and I heard my name repeated over and over again. What was that all about?
Oh, I believe that was Miss Duvall's granddaughter.
Oh.
Yeah, she was saying Ray Gibson and Bob Klitzkie.
Oh, smart
but she
girl.
couldn't say my name because it's not worthy.
You know, Real Joe Cruz, it's hard to argue with someone who's so well informed.
True.
Yeah. But that girl sounds like she's a smart girl. She
very.
Yeah, Bob
very
Klitzkie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said your last name way better than I did.
Well, no comment, he said, and you can quote me on that. All right, so we finished Zemi Krutney. Let's go to the card. Yeah, I got a call already, and we're just getting started. I haven't even been, oh, who is it but our Carl? Yeah, I gave you an assignment yesterday, Real Joe Cruz.
Yeah.
Our Carl, better known as the most dangerous man in the room. Uh-huh. There's your theme music, R. Carl.
Wow.
The most dangerous man in the room.
I'm impressed.
Okay, so what can you tell me, R. Carl?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in regarding your editorial you were reading about this, the Wuhan virus. I saw a very interesting short video recently. It's just a few minutes long. And it's put out by Tony Heller, who really does some great videos. And in it, he compares, he talks about this recent boast by New Zealand that they've been gone through 100 days without having any people that have been diagnosed with having Wuhan virus, which doesn't mean there's no people that have it. They just haven't been diagnosed. And then he also compares in this same short video, and the reason why New Zealand is this way, because they've completely locked down. In the process of doing this, reaching this this benchmark, 100 days, they've basically almost totally destroyed a $16.2 billion tourism industry. They have crippled, or brought to its knees, an industry that employs 229,000 New Zealanders. And the problem is that the virus is still raging around the world. So what exactly is their plan? Are they going to lock down for an entire year? A year and a half? 2 years? I mean, where exactly does this end? In this same video, it also compares another country that had a completely opposite approach to dealing with the virus. They did not lock down their borders. They didn't go to any extreme measures. They made everything pretty much voluntary. They educated the public on what was advisable to do as far as mask wearing and some common sense social distancing, especially among people who are vulnerable, you know, the elderly, kind of common sense things, and kind of trusting that the public, once they were educated, would, for the most part, make the right choices. And Tony Heller shows some official charts that show the level of deaths in Sweden, and there is a spike early on, and then over time, over months, it dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped until it's now almost completely. I mean, it's not at zero yet, but it's really quickly approaching there. And what happened is Sweden got to herd immunity. And so the virus is trying to reach out to find victims to infect that don't have the antibodies, but it's having more and more problems finding people that don't have the antibodies. So I just found that very interesting, these two different approaches. The name of the video is called Reaching for the Precious. And it was named that because Reaching for the Precious is taken from the movie, what is it, Tolkien's book, I'm trying to think of the name of it, and it escapes me for the moment.
Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yeah, in which this character in Lord of the Rings is totally obsessed with his precious, the ring, and he ignores everything else, all the other things going on around him. And the New Zealand prime minister or whatever the leader is of New Zealand is called, is so totally obsessed with locking down the country that she seems completely unaware that she's destroying the economy in the process. So they paid a huge price for this 100 days. And the same thing happened in San Francisco during the 1918-1919 Spanish flu. San Francisco did a fantastic job in locking down for the first wave. There were 3 waves. The first wave, they did a great job. They cordoned off various areas. They didn't even allow doctors or nurses, no one, to travel between these cordoned off areas. So they did a really good job in stopping, or not stopping, but slowing the spread. The problem is that just meant there were that many more people who didn't have the antibodies. So when the second wave hit, it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up, that, you know, at what point does this just doesn't make any sense? We think we're accomplishing something, but all we're doing is reserving future people to be infected because they haven't developed the antibodies. It's just we're chasing our tail. You know, we have to eventually, the virus has to work its way through the population. And what we're doing is we're allowing it we're slowing things down. We're chopping the puppy's tail off a quarter inch at a time. And we think that's great. You know, we should have, at some point, once we found the parameters of the disease, the illness, we should have focused all our efforts on educating the public on how to take care of the most vulnerable, the elderly, some people with underlying conditions, and focus as much as possible on that. Everybody else needs to go back to work, go back to school. Children, especially under 10, the number of children who have any fatalities from this are virtually zero. For some reason, they don't know why, but the fatality rate is super, super, super low among children. It only goes up once you get to the 60 and especially 70 or 80-year-old. Those are by far the most vulnerable. Anyway, I just wanted to add in my 2 bits about that, about us chasing our tail with this Wuhan virus.
Okay, well, thanks, Carl. Very interesting. Thanks for calling.
All right.
Okay, so let's go to the card. And this is what I've got on the card for today. I've got Tina. It's been 36 days now since Tina has detected an emergency dealing with the public health or safety of such a nature that she would have to call the legislature into emergency session and suspend public hearing requirements on bills to come before that session. 36 whole days. It's a long period of safety. And, of course, we don't keep track of Janella-ing anymore because she's taken her Janella button over to the Department of Public Health and Social Services. And Louise Muñoz fell off the calendar here when she decided, after the ballots were printed, that she didn't really want to be a senator after all. She saw what her name looked like on the ballot, and she said, I don't think so, yeah. So what we have on the card today is along the lines of my homily or sermon, Black Lives Matter versus sports. And this is a continuing series. It started out with the woke versus us, gaslighting the truth, woke versus free speech, and now it's Black Lives Matter versus sports. Next, I've got Tom Woods versus lockdowners, and Lebowski versus impossible odds. And then some things that have been on the calendar for a while, Ken LG, the woke, Are You Ready, etc. And then a new item here, gambling versus Guam. Maybe I'll just skip over the Ken LG versus the woke and Are You Ready, etc., and go straight to gambling versus Guam. But I'm going to take a short break first before I plunge headlong into the card.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you wear a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific Rosebud branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, this is an article I found in Breitbart.com, and this is about a Brooklyn College professor of math education named Lori Rubel, R-U-B-E-L, Rubel, Rebel, maybe, something like that. Brooklyn College education prof claims math is white supremacist patriarchy. Yeah, that's what I thought too, real jokers. Yeah. Now, I've got to once again remind you what identity politics is about. Identity politics, coupled with postmodernism and critical race theory, holds that there really is no objective truth, or actually any objective reality or facts. You know, if you are observing something, what you're observing doesn't count. What counts is the identity groups of the people involved in what you're observing. Some of the folks in some of the identity groups will be in groups called the oppressed, and they will be oppressed by another identity group called the oppressor. So unless you understand who is the oppressed and who is the oppressor, everything else is irrelevant. It just doesn't make any difference, because everything is governed by who is oppressed and who is the oppressor. Now, it's usually pretty easy to spot the oppressor because he'll be the white male, preferably the white Christian or Jewish male, and people who can be sorted into other identity groups constitute the oppressed. So once again, the objective reality of what's going on doesn't count. It's oppressed and oppressors that count. Now, here's Brooklyn College professor of math education, Lori Rubel, argued this week on Twitter that the mathematical equation 2 + 2 = 4. Are you familiar with that?
I think that's correct, sir.
Did you study algebra in school, real jokers?
I did, sir.
Did you study trigonometry?
I did.
Yeah. How about calculus?
I did, sir.
So would you say that 2 + 2 = 4 is a true mathematical statement?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's what Lori Rubel says. 2 + 2 = 4 reeks of white supremacist patriarchy. Rubel's tweet was retweeted and promoted by several academics at universities and colleges around the nation. According to a report by Campus Reform, Brooklyn College professor Lori Rubble, who teaches math education, tried to make the case this week that basic math is white supremacist. What kind of math did you study when you were in school? Did you study white math or brown math or was it just math?
I think it was just math, sir.
Yeah.
Math.
Okay. Okay. Tried to make the case this week that basic math is, quote, white supremacist. The tweets are part of a larger trend in recent scholarship by American academics, many of which have argued that, quote, objective truth, close quote, is a social construct. In other words, it doesn't really exist. It's just how people treat one another. The idea that math or data is culturally neutral or in any way objective is a myth. I'm ready to move on with that understanding. Who's coming with me? Rebel wrote in a tweet. So there were some people who said, I'm coming with you. I wanted to count them, but I wouldn't know how to do it, because the only thing I would have to count would be numbers. And, of course, that's objective reality, and it's just a social construct. Along with the, of course, math is neutral because 2 + 2 = 4 trope, and the related and creepy math is pure and protect math reeks of white supremacist patriarchy. Rubble added, I'd rather think on nurturing people and protecting the planet with math in service of them goals. So let's see. 2 + 2 = protect the planet. That's a lot better, right? Several academics from institutions around the nation chimed in. Harvard PhD candidate Kareem Carr suggested that math should be reevaluated because here it is. Math should be reevaluated because it was primarily developed by white men. Now, this goes back to what I explained at the beginning here. There's no objective truth. What happened doesn't count. It's the identity groups involved, the oppressed and oppressors. So if white men invented math, obviously it's a tool of oppression. People say it's subjectivism to ask if math is Western. I don't get that. It's an objective fact that some groups were more involved in the creation of modern math than others, Carr said. They may have been trying to make it objective, but it's not stupid to ask if they actually succeeded. So it's silly me, you know, when I got old enough to start thinking about, you know, things like facts and truth, etc., you know, I figured, you know, history, I'm a real history buff. I studied history in college. And history is really something that the historian discovers. A real historian goes back to original documents. He reads them, he puts things together, and he comes up with his theory of what happens. And ordinarily, after he does that, a revisionist will come along and to come up with a different theory. So you can't say, with respect to history, that there's anything total and finite about it. It is a matter of interpretation. Not the same with mathematics. Mathematics has always been there, so to speak. It's just something that humans have been able to figure out as time goes on, but it's really not subject to much interpretation. It is as it is. So, but back to this article, people say it's subjectivism to ask if math is Western. I don't get that. It's an objective fact that some groups were more involved in the creation of modern math than others. Of course, no one created math. They may have been trying to make it objective, but it's not stupid to ask if they actually succeeded. Well, Kareem Carr, I'll tell you what's stupid here. It's two words, Kareem Carr. Here's what's stupid. Kareem Carr. A few academics have pushed back. James Lindsay, one of the academics behind a series of hoax papers that were published in, quote, social justice journals, reminded Rubble and her peers that mathematical truths are objective. It's certainly the case, and the woke need to be firmly to the point that feats of engineering like space travel and rocketry utterly depend upon accepting stable meanings of mathematical statements like 2 + 2 = 4 as objectively true, not mere accidents of culture. Yeah, now people are, there's a picture of this lady right here. You know, she's actually saying this stuff with a straight face.
That's a lady, sir?
Wait a minute. They, pardon me, whoa, back up. They are capable of saying this with a straight face.
Okay.
Here's their picture. Yeah, I mean, this is just absolute lunacy. And university professors who are woke are peddling this stuff around. And it's just not a small, there's a lot of people that are doing this. So maybe that will help you understand why I got on James W. Moylan when he introduced his SOP to identity politics, his hate crimes bill that identified 16 identity groups. This is poison. Can you imagine trying to build a spaceship, try to build a car, an automobile, and not have any assurance that the math that you need to build a car is objectively true? So that if you knew that the compression ratio of your engine, that is the compression ratio, piston, cylinders, etc., was 9-to-1, you couldn't be satisfied with that. You'd have to say, well, this idea of a compression ratio, that was just invented by white men, so it's white patriarchy. I don't believe that. I'm not going to build a car based on this engine based on the compression ratio is 9-to-1 or any of these other things. Or, you know, in order to make the tire round, I have to go along with something like pi. You know, that the ratio of a circle to its diameter is 3.1416, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, where'd you get that, sir? Off the top of your head?
Yeah, well, you know, yeah. It can't possibly be true. Well, you know why? You know who came up with this? You know what pi is? What is it exactly?
Yes, it's 3.14, sir.
Yeah, but you know what the symbol pi is?
Yes, sir.
What is it, Real Joe Cruz?
It's like this.
Yeah, it's from the Greek alphabet.
Oh, the Greeks did it.
The Greeks. Classic case of white patriarchy. Untrustworthy, completely untrustworthy. So for all we know, and a social construct, so for all we know, the ratio of a diameter of a circle to its circumference could very well be 4.2, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we don't know. Objective truth doesn't exist. It's amazing. And people are publishing papers on this and writing articles. Okay. So that was as you were. That was what was that exactly? Yeah, the sermon for yesterday, and I got another one for today. I skipped that one yesterday. Let's see, where is it here? Yeah. More of the same thing, basically. Black Lives Matter versus sports. And this comes from a website called LifeSite News. And here's the title of the article. Black Lives Matter's queer founders have emasculated professional sports. Boy, you talk about a politically incorrect, emasculated sports. Hundreds of professional baseball players in recent weeks quietly surrendered themselves to the abhorrent ideology of the Black Lives Matter organization. We have witnessed an unthinkable degradation as the whole country watched 3 Marxist women forced nearly every Major League Baseball player to kneel before them and their strange countercultural creed. By bending their knees, these men have paid homage not to civil rights, but to Marxism and to the destruction of the nuclear family, to transgender and gay political power squashing not just religious liberty, but religion itself, to the defunding of police, and to the erasure of Western history and culture. The great American pastime is no longer great. In fact, it's no longer American. The revolution was over before it began, as hundreds of professional ball players in recent weeks quietly surrendered themselves to the abhorrent ideology of Black Lives Matter, founded in 2013 by a trio of militant Marxist women, Patrice Kahn-Cullors, Opal Tometi, and Alicia Garza. Kahn-Cullors identifies as lesbian, and Garza is, quote, married to a transgender man. The queer-affirming women pulled off a mass castration of the players' Judeo-Christian beliefs and whatever patriotism they held in their hearts. What's more, the emasculation of these athletes was televised. We now watch American geldings romp around on the ball field. Many of these men no doubt thought they were doing a good thing by taking a knee before their games. And of course, I have to come back to white coats for Black Lives Matter. Right down here on Skinner Plaza, doctors and nurses, white coats for Black Lives Matter. Many of these men thought they were doing a good thing by taking a knee before the games. But as Rush Limbaugh has noted, their actions cannot be justified by claiming ignorance. All you got to do is go to their website, and there you will find that BLM is a proud pro-Marxist, anti-American organization. And yet professional sports leagues believe they're getting into bed with a civil rights organization, observed Limbaugh. It's the most amazing thing. The Black Lives Matter organization has never repudiated nor denied its manifesto and praxis which are committed to Marxism, which includes atheism, a rewriting of history, hate for anyone who disagrees with them, and anti-Semitism, wrote Rabbi Michael Barclay in a PJ Media commentary titled, "I'm boycotting professional sports leagues that endorse Black Lives Matter, and so should you." 2. They call for the destruction of Israel, and they call an apartheid, which they call an apartheid state that practices genocide, Limbaugh explained. Many of their leaders, such as Melina Abdullah, the head of BLM Los Angeles, claim Louis Farrakhan as their spiritual advisor, a man whose hate-filled dogma has for decades wanted every Jew exterminated. Okay, so we're coming up to break here before the big halftime show.
Top End Pest Control is who you call for all your pest control needs. Got a problem with roaches, ants, spiders, rodents, fleas, ticks, termites? No problem. They do it all. Top End Pest Control is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business and HubZone certified, serving Guam since 2012. Call them today for a quote, 487-5657, or email topendpest@gmail.com. Check them out on Facebook at Top End Pest Control and give them a like. Top End Pest Control for all your pest control needs.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. They are open in Agana, ready for dine-in, takeout, and delivery services from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call them, 479-2652, and get your Mezcla fix today.
Let's see. I just took a peek at Facebook comments here, and Jill Pareto, who's pretty quick on the uptake, says 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. 2 + 2 equals 22.
I see.
Makes a lot of sense.
There you go.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, so winding up here, we now live in an environment where bullies filled with hate have the ability to dictate practices, continued Rabbi Barclay, where the loudest shout down what is right and righteous to push people to surrender their dogma, and their hate has now pushed itself into an acceptance on an institutional level. None of this should be surprising. Major League Baseball was already poised to make this social justice leap. Last year, every single Major League Baseball team hosted a Pride Night, except for the Astros and the Rangers, although both those teams have held homosexual pride events previously. Teams have routinely posted pictures of these events on social media, treating, quote, pride as just another theme night. Yet they simultaneously wrap these events in a mantle of social justice, hyping their promotion of diversity and inclusion. The gang of professional baseball is pretty much complete, so social justice demanded new and greater fealty. Literally, folks, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NBA are in bed with Black Lives Matter, Rush Limbaugh emphasized during his radio show. Black Lives Matter is an acknowledged, proud, not hiding it, Marxist, anti-American organization, and professional sports is in bed with it. Out of the 750 or so Major League Baseball players on team rosters at the start of the season, only one, San Francisco Giants Sam Coonrod, refused to kneel, citing his Christian faith. I'm just a Christian. I believe I can't kneel before anything but God or Jesus Christ, he told reporters. 3 Marxist queer-affirming women have stolen professional sports from Middle America, and league and team owners and players gladly handed themselves over. So this is a serious matter. It isn't as serious here on Guam as it yet as it is in the mainland, but some of the warning signs are there. We have our own versions of identity politics here. And when you have a theoretically intelligent group of people like MDs, physicians, who buy into this white coats for Black Lives Matter, that is not good news. So I'm going to keep chipping away at it here. I'm going to keep telling that one place where the truth still survives is here on Tall Tales. We still believe in objective truth, regardless of where it comes from. Okay, next I go on to Tom Woods versus lockdowners, and this kind of picks up on something that our Carl, also known as the most dangerous man in the room, talked about a little earlier. Yeah. Okay, here it goes. Surely, someday, somewhere, amidst the fact-free frenzy that has consumed America, someone was going to resist, right? Some organized group had to step up. The idea that we should ruin everyone's life in order to protect the vulnerable instead of just protecting the vulnerable makes no sense. I'm going to stop there. We should ruin everyone's life to protect the vulnerable instead of just protecting the vulnerable makes no sense. Now, I have special standing to speak on this because have your Kleenex box handy there, folks. And Pam Duvall's daughter, do we know what her granddaughter's name is?
I don't, sir.
Yeah, Pam Duvall's granddaughter. Have your Kleenex box handy because I'm going to say something sad here. I am one of the vulnerable. I am old, right? The only pre-existing condition I have is a gigantic mouth, a huge mouth, which you've all noticed if you've been listening to Tall Tales. But I'm certainly one of the most vulnerable. So here's the drill. The idea that we should ruin everybody's life in order to protect the vulnerable instead of just protecting the vulnerable makes no sense. And I would have signed up for that in a heartbeat. You know, if you had wanted to say, you old folks, this is what you must do. A regime of testing. Make arrangements so that if you have to, you can go and defilade for long periods of time. I'd have gone along with that rather than see the whole island just turn to a ghost town. In fact, the whole country, maybe the whole world. So this is it. The idea that we should ruin everyone's life in order to protect the vulnerable instead of just protecting the vulnerable makes no sense. If I graph the progress of the virus in numerous states, some with bars open, others with them closed, some with restaurants open at 25 or 50%, and some with restaurants fully open, you will not be able to tell me which is which. Not by looking at the graphs. It's all theater, egged on by politicians who have a unique opportunity. Okay, well, we'll come back to Tom Woods versus lockdown right after that big halftime, Joe, we've all been waiting for here.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM, and 104.3 HD3.
No new talks on stimulus. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. As the number of worldwide cases of the coronavirus passes 20 million, negotiations for another economic relief package are still stalled.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell traded blame over talks collapsing late last week.
Rather than compromise, our Republican counterparts said take a hike.
For weeks, they held up important aid over non-COVID related demands.
Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says he has not spoken with Schumer or House Speaker Nancy Pelosi since talks between top Democrats and the White House broke off Friday. But he says he's willing to meet if Democrats have a new proposal.
Fox's Jared Halpern. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says it's the administration that must compromise. The president signed 4 executive orders over the weekend to stimulate the economy, including a payroll tax holiday. He told a White House press briefing on Monday he's considering more measures.
We're looking at also considering a capital gains tax cut, which would create a lot more jobs.
Treasury Secretary Mnuchin told governors on Monday the administration's preference would be legislation to spur the economy. Shortly after Monday's briefing began, the president was whisked away to the Oval Office after shots were fired outside the White House. They came in a confrontation between a Secret Service officer and a man who told him he had a gun and then made threatening moves.
The Secret Service officer discharged his weapon, striking the individual in the torso.
Thomas Sullivan, the chief of the Secret Service Uniformed Division, says the shooter is a 51-year-old man. He is expected to recover. City Council in Seattle voting to cut that city's police department budget and eliminate scores of positions, also slashing the police chief's pay by 40%. Chief Carmen Best, a vocal opponent of those cuts, has told the department's rank and file in an email she has resigned over them. America is listening to Fox News.
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
We have lunch selections starting at $9. Choose from a variety of mouthwatering entrees like our Old Timer with cheese, ranchero chicken tacos, or the half-rack baby back ribs. All lunch selections are served with a refreshing bottomless Coca-Cola beverage. Experience the bold flavors at a great price with Chili's lunch selections starting at $9. Available Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Located in the Two Monsieur's Plaza, 2nd floor. Chili's, savor the moment.
Hafide, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
The Justice Department's move to dismiss the case against former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn goes before the entire Washington, D.C. Federal Appeals Court today.
The more common 3-judge panel procedure is giving way to at least 10 of the 11 D.C. Appeals Court judges being seated for this proceeding. The judges told both sides to prepare to give oral arguments about how federal law affects judicial impartiality. Flynn, who at one time pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI, sought to take back that plea. When the Justice Department asked for a dismissal, trial judge Emmett Sullivan refused to immediately grant it. Flynn's lawyers called Sullivan vindictive, but the judge's legal team says he has a right to challenge the motives of the request. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
A judge in Minnesota has ordered the public release of the police body-worn camera video of the arrest of George Floyd in Minneapolis on Memorial Day. In that video, Floyd tells the officers he is not resisting arrest, but he is claustrophobic and has just had COVID-19. Floyd pleads with the officers that he cannot breathe. He died after Officer Derek Chauvin knelt on his neck for several minutes. 2 Alabama parents have been arrested after the hot car death of their 3-year-old.
Brandy Burks and Dakota Fowler in Russellville, north of Birmingham, are charged with manslaughter after medics weren't able to revive their young child. Officials are saying the parents told them the last time they saw the 3-year-old was around midnight Saturday when the toddler was put to bed. The parents then said they couldn't find the child at first when they woke up Sunday afternoon They did find him inside a vehicle later, and that's when deputies were called. No defense lawyers are listed yet for the parents. Jill Nato, Fox News.
After a 7th straight winning session by the Dow Monday, Asian stock markets are closing Tuesday mixed. Dow futures are trading more than 90 points higher. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you wear a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific, Rosebud branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff. Whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs, they're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are, another beautiful halftime show here. And well, during the halves, I had a chance to peek at my Facebook comments again. Jill Paredo's got a pretty good sense of humor. Why shouldn't she? She's part of the international Facebook audience, right? But picking up on what I'm talking about here, Tom Woods versus the lockdown, what we should do is protect the vulnerable, isolate the vulnerable, not ruin the whole world. So here's what Jill Paredo says. I live in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. What I want to know is, where do I isolate Granny? If she has to, I do it. Where should she isolate Granny? And then she says, where should I isolate Granny if I get sick? I'd try the closet, but she already came out as a lesbian in January. Jill Paredo. Very good, Jill. Keep them coming. Okay. So I left off with it's all theater, egged on by politicians who have a unique opportunity to exercise power righteously and to portray themselves as having saved lives, even though the virus appears to peak and taper off according to the same pattern everywhere, regardless of our non-pharmaceutical interventions. Meanwhile, people have been shamed into not saying a single word when their lives and businesses are ruined and things that give their lives meaning are taken away indefinitely. So surely someone is going to say, this is stupid and evil. And it turns out it's college football players and the #WeWantToPlay movement. Big Ten presidents apparently thought they could collude with the hysterics in sports media to get the fall season canceled. And that would be that. They didn't count on a massive outcry from players themselves. This wasn't supposed to happen. The players, like the rest of us in our own lives, are supposed to shut up like good peons and let their betters tell them that something they love is being taken from them, regardless of what they think. And regardless of the fact that if ever there were a group of people at no risk from Wuhan virus, it's college athletes. The SOBs may still cancel the season, but how refreshing to see so many people willing to say enough is enough to the fact-free anti-science lockdowners. And the facts and figures suggesting that lockdowns have been both devastating and pointless keep piling up. This is a hard era for facts, Real Joe Cruz. The woke folks will tell you there's no such thing as objective facts, and the lockdowners will present things to you that they say are facts that really aren't. In the meantime, the better the news gets about the virus and how obviously manageable it is, the crazier the Borg becomes. They're still acting as if the Sun Belt is in major trouble. It isn't. The virus is already burning out there. Buddy Dyer, the mayor of Orlando, has just said that bars won't reopen until there's a vaccine. So you can never again go out for a drink until an outcome that may never occur comes to pass. I got to wonder if the prohibition folks are maybe behind this somewhere. Well, that's Tom Woods and his take on the lockdowners, and I think it's all the points are very well taken. Okay, next item on the card, Lebowski versus Impossible Odds. And this comes from an article in the Post. It's entitled, Protest Draws Attention to Malpractice Concerns. Sanctioned, quote, sanctioned death of Asher, close quote. Those were words written on one of the signs David Lebowski held standing in front of the Guam Seventh-day Adventist Clinic in Tamuning, while another man, Jim Mansfield, chanted through a microphone at passersby, "Patients' lives matter, and patients' rights matter." Like, can you say that? Can you say patients' lives? Won't the Black Lives Matter people get mad? The men held a small protest. Two people, I guess you could say that's a small protest. The men held a small protest in front of the clinic Monday morning. Lebowski is the father of 5-year-old Asher Lebowski, who died in October 2018, allegedly due to medical negligence. He has been seeking to change the Guam's Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act, which requires arbitration before taking a malpractice claim to court. Critics claim the law bars judicial access behind the costly out-of-court process. Doctors claim it's needed to keep malpractice insurance costs low and ensure there are health care providers on Guam. Lebowski has sued the clinic and challenged the constitutionality of the law in the Superior Court. He lost the constitutionality argument, however, and the malpractice claim is now subject to arbitration. But the court did acknowledge that Guam's law places the burden of keeping costs low and maintaining affordable care, quote, on one small and vulnerable sector of society, namely non-wealthy victims of medical malpractice. Mitchell Thompson, who represents SDA in Lebowski's suit, said the clinic remains confident that an arbitration panel will reject Lebowski's claim. These claims were already rejected by the medical examiners, etc. Back to Lebowski. He said he feels appealing his case to the Supreme Court is necessary, but that comes with its own costs. Arbitration will be costly. Whether he will proceed with appeal is still undetermined, but standing in the grass just behind the clinic's entrance, Lebowski said he feels he's been forced to demonstrate as one of the only things he can do to hold the clinic responsible. He said he's talked with others to do the same regarding their own cases of alleged malpractice. We can't do anything with the court. We can't do anything with arbitration. The only thing I can do is come in front of the clinic and tell people my son died here related to medical negligence, Lebowski said. There needs to be more transparency with doctors' history, he added. If you really want to improve medical care on Guam, you need to make doctors accountable so bad doctors are identified and they get extra training or whatever. Plus, when people are not accountable, they become apathetic and mistakes start to happen. Mansfield, a veteran, said an unexpected procedure was performed on him at Guam Regional Medical Center that led to a $49,196 bill. He did have insurance through the Department of Veterans Affairs. I would like to stop letting these hospitals take advantage of veterans just for the sake of draining the VA, training the Tri-West insurance system. While the Superior Court has decided on constitutionality of the law, the federal court is determining the issue through a separate case. So I've talked about this before, and here's what we're talking about. Lebowski alleges that the son of his 5-year-old boy was caused by what amounted to medical malpractice. And I suppose it would follow that his theory is that had it not been for the medical malpractice, the boy would still be alive. His theory is that because it's extremely difficult for most people to bring suit against a doctor for medical malpractice, that we have more medical malpractice here than what there should be. In order to bring a suit for medical malpractice, a plaintiff has to go through the MMAA procedure, and that costs at least $60,000 before you can before the doors of the courthouse are open to you. And medical malpractice suits aren't cheap either. Now, you may be able to find an attorney who would take your case on a contingency fee basis, but there's still some upfront costs that you may be able to recover. But it's not a cheap procedure. But I think the real question is this, and Lebowski makes some pretty tough comments here. He says that when people are not accountable, meaning they can't be sued for malpractice, they become apathetic and mistakes start to happen. So if you were to take Lebowski's theory and simplify it, it's this. If doctors could be sued for medical malpractice, there would be less medical malpractice on the island. That's his theory. The doctors, on the other hand, say that if doctors could easily be sued for medical malpractice, there wouldn't be as many doctors on the island, because doctors have to pony up a lot of money for medical malpractice insurance. And the theory is that doctors are not tripping over one another to come to Guam to practice medicine. So the MMAA folks are saying we need to have that mechanism in place in order to help us recruit doctors. Without it, we'd be worse off than we are now. Lebowski's position is if doctors are not responsible for medical malpractice in suits that are relatively easy to bring, the quality of medical care declines. Now, I haven't made my ruling on this yet. It's complicated, and I probably would want to hear from some doctors on this subject, although I have a sense of probably where they'd be coming from. But let me ask our Fred what he thinks about it. Our Fred, what do you think about the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act?
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
Yeah, I disagree with what's going on and how patients, or in this case, the relative, is not able to, formulate the malpractice lawsuit against a doctor. Our law is just due to attracting doctors and for the clinics and hospitals, just so they have this law that waives or protects them, actually.
That's right.
Malpractice.
That's right.
It's absurd. It's absurd. I mean, the rest. I mean, I know the United States has the malpractice, right? Am I right? You can correct me if I'm wrong. They have the malpractice lawsuit.
Every state is a little different as to how they handle it. I don't know if any other state has the mandatory arbitration like we do, but every state it's a matter of state law, Fred.
Mm-hmm. Well, in Guam, with the amount of abuse, or let's just say the negligence going on because they're protected by it, really puts the patients and the 175,000 people at risk of, going to a doctor here is like, you can compare it to, say, seek a good analogy here. It's like you're going to maybe a farmer and asking a farmer to fix your car. It's a chance you're taking. So how confident can one be to go to a doctor here? It's very dangerous. That's why everyone seeks medical treatment off island, because they need the competencies when they're getting treated for something, instead of the guessing game or so forth, and they're protected by it. So it really puts the health at risk of individuals when you have to be go through arbitrary laws and how much it costs. So it's pretty much a buffer just to kind of have people not pursue it. It's like accept what happened and go on with your life, in layman terms, right?
Well, that's kind of the net result, yeah.
Yeah, so it just deters. It costs too much, takes too long, and you begin to individuals begin to accept the reality because of the time that passes. So it's a psychological effect, I think, or the psychological effect that occurs, which makes the patient or the person bringing the lawsuit just kind of, the energy level just drops. And I think that's the main reason they have it, just to kind of, just let it go and accept it. And it's not worth the fight is taken out of you. That's what it's all is there, set up for that. Do you agree? What do you think?
Well, like I said, it's a complicated question, and I haven't come up with my ruling yet because, it would. I think we need a little bit more information. How many medical malpractice cases do we have on our island, and how does that compare with other jurisdictions of a similar size?
Mm-hmm.
And
well, go ahead.
And if we didn't have the triple M, how much would medical malpractice insurance cost, and would it really be a significant deterrent in attracting doctors to come here and practice? Those are the two important questions.
Mm-hmm. I know, I don't know the numbers, how high, but it is high, and I know that we are accepting doctors that probably wouldn't be able to practice medicine in other states, but we welcome them and accept them and then put our population at risk.
How do you know that, Alfred?
I've spoken to various doctors on island, and these doctors are very competent and knowledgeable, and specialists, actually. They've agreed that just to attract them, and because we need the services, we need a bone expert, we need a specialist in many different fields. Just to attract them, we have this law set up, or lack of, that protects them. And they're not able to practice in other states, but they are allowed to in Guam just because, hey, we need you, come on in.
And you've heard this from
doctors.
From doctors. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective, Alfred. Yeah.
Which brings me to the point of, and you can see how you want to apply this to various areas of what we go through here on the island, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I have indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've accused some people I know of being affected by the Dunning-Kruger effect, which means some people are so dumb they don't know they're dumb.
Yeah, I think that Dunning-Kruger effect research and study done applies in many different areas, and which prevents the island from progressing.
Well,
go ahead.
We have a special software filter here that prevents anyone suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect from tuning in an international radio listening audience. So there aren't any out there. Hey, Fred, I got to take a short break, but thanks for introducing that into Tall Tales. Thank you.
Yeah, elaborate on that later on, maybe after the break.
I'll do it. Okay, so short break, and then we're going to go from there to France.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? You wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
Here we are after that big halftime. Oh, wait a minute. After that big seventh inning stretch here, Wrigley Field in Chicago. I'm just going to touch on the Dunning-Kruger effect before I go to Frenchie. A couple of psychologists, Dunning and Kruger, did some tests, and they found that there is a phenomenon where people who really don't know much over-evaluate their own intelligence, and they think they're smarter than what they really are. So in a sense, they're not smart enough to know that they're not smart. And I remember one of the examples that was given of the Dunning-Kruger effect was this robber who was going to conduct an armed robbery. So he smeared lemon juice all over his face. And when the cops got him, he said, I'm surprised that the victim recognized me because I put lemon juice on my face. And the error in the robber's thinking was that if you were to take a letter and put lemon juice on the letter, the writing would disappear.
Brilliant, sir.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Classic case of the Dunning-Kruger effect. But as I mentioned to our Fred, we have a special software filter here on our Facebook and on our phone lines and everything else that would detect the Dunning-Kruger effect and probably see to it that no one suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect is part of our international radio listening audience. All right, let me see what Frenchie's got to say this afternoon. Good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Bob. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, the Dunning-Kruger effect is the modern version of what Blaise Pascal had already identified by saying that the reason people don't know they're dumb is because the only way for them to figure it out is the little brain that they have. So it's I wanted to cut back on
before you leave Pascal, right?
Yeah.
He's a smart guy. As a matter of fact, you could bet on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could wager on Pascal, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Frenchie.
Thank you, Bob. I wanted to catch back a little bit on what you talked about earlier, which was those woke professors and things, and the continued use of identity politics, basically, finding new ways to become a victim in order to attack the victimizer. So it goes back. If you go back to the communists used to have what was called the Comintern, which was an annual event where they met communists from all over the world were meeting in Moscow. And it was kind of a communist jamboree of sort. And Stalin used it to clean up a little bit the people he didn't like and so on and so forth. And after World War II, things were changing. In 1948, they did the expulsion of the Yugoslavian Communist Party. They also tasked the French and Italian Communist Party to oppose the Marshall Plan in Europe, which they did with quite a lot of efficiency, actually. And then basically in 1949, with the arrival of the communists in China, the Comintern became more and more irrelevant. And you saw over the 1950s a switch. The communists had always been for the struggle of classes, and based on the Marxist idea that given the right environment, the workers will rise against their oppressors of the bourgeoisie. And that didn't pan out really in a lot of places, even though there was communist parties in almost every country in the world, including the United States. So they started to shift the struggle to the struggle of minorities against Western paternalism and Western colonialism, because they had seen that if they could preach to all those colonized countries, don't forget, after World War II, the two largest colonial empires are still the British and the French, and then, of course, the Dutch And the Portuguese, to a lesser extent, still had vast holdings in different places around the world. And so they're, especially under Khrushchev, they really rationalized that they wanted to use the fight against paternalism and against colonialism to bring it to bear against Western countries. And that brings us to what is happening now here on Guam. I mean, we have an election coming in November. We have 2 senators who are avowed anti-militarist people. And, I've talked about Senator Perez before and the fact that she belonged to the International Women's Network against militarism. But what I found out is that she also has been affiliated for almost a quarter of a century with the Women for Genuine Security, which is a far-left group based in the Bay Area, of course, surprise, surprise. And she probably got there while she was doing her studies. And, they are radical leftists, and basically they are punching all the buttons of the communist manifestos and to decolonize Guam. They have a decolonize Guam blogspot, and they have petitions online. They have a lot of people. Senator Perez even hosted the Women for Genuine Security in 2008 and again in 2017, which is quite recent. And all the meetings were made at the UOG, which is, of course, under the patronage of our former UOG director, who is now running to be a delegate. And those people all have the thing, the International Women's Network Against Militarism, if I may, their mission statement says, our mission is to promote, model, and protect genuine security by creating an international women's network of solidarity against militarism and to strengthen our common consciousness and voice by sharing our experience and making critical connections among patriarchy, militarism, imperialism, colonialism, and other systems of oppression. And on their pages, they have a wheel which shows the intersectionality of all those oppressed people, including transgender, all those people. Basically, they are raking wide in order to get basically every discontent to go there. And on their website, they also advocate from the experience that they gained both in Korea and in Okinawa, the use of the environment, of history, of the oppression of the local people, and of woman exploitation by people that benefit from the military. And so they attack, for example, the bars that are usually around those military facilities in Korea and Okinawa. They also do make a lot of hay about some of the sexual incidents that do happen sometime when some of those servicemen get drunk and meet younger people. And so you have that whole thing that kind of coalesce here. And those people have been at it for over 25 years. And Marsh Titano is the same thing, except she's closer to Bevacqua, and they are doing more their attack on the Chamorro culture and so on. But they have definitely all the marking of those communist international meetings and all what they were preaching. And basically, all those people are professors either in the Bay Area or in the Denver area. they all, I mean, they probably teach 12, 13 hours a week, which gives them plenty of time to agitate and do research and get grants and so on. And they're all basically, all their studies is about ethnic studies and all those things. It's very interesting. Of course, they do not go and demonstrate against the Chinese military in Hainan or the military base now that they're implanting in South China Sea or things like this. But it is very obvious that their main goal is to close the military and to close the base. It's in their vision part, which I'm not going to read because it's too long, but that's exactly what they are advocating. And Senator Perez has written several articles, one of them being called Thieves of the Island, where she basically attacks the military about everything going on. And she likes to be very low-key, but she's a very radical person. She's probably more radical than Marsh Taitano. In the 2017 conference that they had on Guam, she did the whole thing about the native Chamorros must not use the standoff between the United States and Korea, not be used, I stand corrected there, not be used. And basically they again put themselves as victims, and they are using the Letikian firing range issue and all those things. So it's quite fascinating. It's a very global thing, but we have direct, long-term, local implication that actually, when you listen to one of our regular callers, what's his name, James Nimtiako, he's basically repeating, aping like a parrot, all the points that those people are making. It's like he's been trained like a little circus dog to repeat those points. And no matter how you explain it to him, on how silly and false assumption he's making, they are brainwashed. And that's what we are facing right now. And now we have to make sure that those two senators don't get reelected.
Very interesting, Frenchie. Very interesting indeed. Senator Taitano.
Yeah, and Senator Perez.
Senator Perez.
Who likes to put new laws about saving pets and things. She's trying to win the hearts and minds of people by having a soft spot for abused bunny dogs, which I am like Palme Duval. I kind of like to rescue bunny dogs, but they are using that to weaponize it for other objectives, and it's quite interesting.
Well, thanks for shedding a little light on that, Frenchie. As usual, your calls are always very interesting and thought-provoking.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bob. I hope we can continue watching these things and shining the light on those people, because besides Bevacqua, there are a lot of other dangerous people. All right.
So long,
have a
Frenchie.
good afternoon.
Thank you. Right. Well, ironically, the next item on the card. Now we're coming up to the home stretch here.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Mesclados opened its doors in 2010 and has been proudly serving the people of Guam for 10 amazing years. In celebration of their 10th anniversary, Mesclados will be offering 20% off on all burgers for a limited time only. Terms and conditions apply. Please call them at 646-6295 for more information, or visit them at their Upper Tumon location, right across Kmart. Thank you, Guam, for making Mesclados one of your favorite hamburger spots.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Hey, the home stretch, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. But we went from there to, from Louisville, Kentucky to, as the real Joe Cruz would say, the Pacific. How did you say that, real Joe Cruz?
Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
But you didn't say it, you said Pacific.
Oh, okay.
Sort of like,
it's organic, sir, so.
Sort of like the lion in Wizard of Oz, if you can do that. Put him up.
Put him up. Put him up.
Right. Okay, so we're going to stay with identity politics here for a while, and this is the old one about if a dog bites a man, it's not news, but when a man bites a dog, it's news. This is Mike San Nicolas versus meritocracy. And this is based on a story that ran on PNC. San Nicolas introduces Native Chamorro Equity Act. H.R. 7986, entitled the Native Chamorro Equity Act, was introduced by Congressman San Nicolas to create a means to identify qualified Native Chamorro companies as 8A firms eligible for federal set-aside, sole source, and general contracts. A set-aside contract is a contract in which only certain contractors may compete, whereas a sole source award is a contract awarded without competition. In fiscal 2019, 8A firms were awarded $30.3 billion in federal contracts, including $9.5 billion in 8A set-aside awards and $9.3 billion in 8A sole source awards. The Minority Small Business and Capital Ownership Development Program, commonly known as 8A program, is limited to eligible businesses unconditionally owned and controlled by one or more socially and economically disadvantaged groups, to include recognized Indian tribes, Native Hawaiian organizations, and Alaska Native corporations. Congress intended that profit made through 8A programs advantages were to be used to principally benefit the indigenous groups. Native Hawaiian organizations, for example, have established educational, job training, and leadership programs that strengthen cultural and historical identities and improve the social opportunities for Native Hawaiians across the nation. The 8A program also provides professional awards to individually owned minority, women, and veterans businesses, which could further benefit from Native ratings if eligible. Quote, expanding Guam 8A eligibility specifically for recognized Native Chamorro firms will help new and existing businesses compete for federal contracts that otherwise may have been awarded to firms with their non-Chamorro Native preferences. Congressman San Nicolas said in a news release, Alaska Native corporations have been directly 8A recognized since 1992, Native Hawaiian organizations since 1988. Here at home and across America, Native Chamorros deserve the equal opportunity afforded to other Native peoples in America. With the introduction of H.R. 7986, we will provide equal access for, ready for this, real Joe Cruz? Our people.
Wow.
Yeah. For Native consideration in federal contracts. Help them become more competitive for billions of dollars in 8A contracting opportunities and direct more money into supporting native programs on Guam. The time has come for us to embrace federal opportunities for the Chamorro people, especially when such opportunities have been afforded to other indigenous people. So, first of all, this is a program run by the national government, and the article did a pretty good job of explaining it. There are 10 benefits if a company can be certified as an 8A certification. I know a little bit about this. I haven't researched it, but I know that part of the game is if you own XYZ Corporation and you happen to be one of those horrible creatures known as a man, a lot of times you find that the female of the partnership, the woman, the wife, is the president. And if the wife happens to be what is loosely referred to as a minority, all the better. But as a practical matter, it's still the same guy who's running the corporation. I know a little bit about that. But for 8A corporations, sole source contracts are available. These contracts allow the federal government award contracts without even putting them out for bid to limited competitors. SBA certification limits the field of competition on federal contracts. Out of approximately 24 million businesses in the U.S., only 8,500 are 8A certified. There's a large federal spending. There's reduction of red tape, better pricing. 8A certified firms grow much faster than their peers. They're construction friendly. 8A construction firms are very effective at winning federal and military contracts, which can be gauged by the fact that 41% of the 8A certified firms are in the construction industry. So this is what I think about the whole program. I am one who is in favor of what's called the meritocracy. The job should go to the person, company, whatever, who can do the best job at the lowest price, if you're talking about contracting. And anything that would prevent a job from going to the best company at the lower price is anti-competitive. Now, those who would support this whole 8A mechanism say, well, yeah, but, you know, it's to help people. And this, of course, is the conservative grievance with big government. You help people, but you help some of the people by giving them something that you took away from somebody else. And when jobs are not awarded on the basis of meritocracy, it costs everybody something. And then, of course, to tie this into identity politics, obviously it's something that does not meet with my favor. But as this article pointed out, it's been going on for over 30 years. So the old familiar saying is, it is what it is. So one of the things that I talk about is remaining part of the American empire and trying to further our lot in the American empire. And some of that comes down to pork. You know, if we're going to stay in the American empire, maybe we can work it out so that we get more federal bucks to build roads or bridges or schools or something like that. It's not that we haven't had a lot already. And the other part of it would be to be involved in some of these programs that benefit others so that we could compete with the other beneficiaries on an equal footing. And as I say, I didn't do much research on this, but I know there's a company on the island called Alutiiq, Alutiiq, Alutic. For one thing, they have the bus contract to haul kids back and forth to Dodea schools. I think they're also a construction industry. And actually, their real name, they're a DBA, or excuse me, a wholly owned subsidiary of another company called Afoknak. And Afoknak is a Native Alaskan corporation. At one time, there were at least 2 of these Native Alaskan corporations here on the island competing with everybody else. And of course, as I sketched it out, they have a lot of real competitive advantages. But Afoknak is a Native corporation, and they have a significant advantage. So I guess, well, no, I don't guess, I have to come down this way. I don't like the whole idea of non-meritocratic award of federal contracts. But try as I might, I can't get the national government to pay a whole lot of attention to the way things ought to be done according to tall tales. So if there are going to be these other corporations that have basically sweetheart deals with the national government, the Hawaii organizations, the Native Alaska corporations, Indians, etc., then in line with my idea of trying to further our position in the American empire, then I suppose San Nicolas is doing the right thing. You know, it's a poor way to do government, but we want to get our cut just like everybody else does. We don't want to be disadvantaged because we're going up against others who have an unfair advantage. I guess you could talk in terms of level playing field, etc. So I guess my final ruling here is that I don't like it, but I'll tolerate it because it's probably in the best interest of many of the people that live here on our island. So, once again, it shows that we have a working delegate in Congress who's looking on an election coming up here pretty soon. Something else along the lines of San Nicolas that I haven't had a chance to mention before. This goes all the way back to July 29. And this is a story that ran in PNC. San Nicolas blocks amendment to kill Guam tourism. Congressman San Nicolas has blocked a move in Congress to take out funding for Guam's visa waiver program. As part of the appropriation bill for Homeland Security being considered by the House of Representatives, San Nicolas said Congressman Tiffany of Wisconsin attempted to move an amendment to defund visa waivers for Guam and the CNMI. Congressman Tiffany of Wisconsin. I've talked to some of my friends back in Wisconsin, and they tell me this guy Tiffany is a jewel.
Do you mean a tool?
A jewel.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's always mobbed at breakfast time. Everybody wants to come over to his house at breakfast time every morning. Breakfast at Tiffany's, Real Joe Cruz.
Oh, okay, I get it now.
The Tiffany Amendment would have cut off funding for the Guam CNMI Visa program, effectively cutting off our tourism market, San Nicolas said. Without the funding, visitors, especially from Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, would have had much greater difficulty traveling to Guam. In order for the amendment to be considered, it needed to clear the Committee on Rules, where San Nicolas said he successfully objected and killed the amendment. So, you know, all this talk about, well, we're not represented in Congress, kind of goes against that, doesn't it? Okay, so the end of another perfect day here on Tall Tales. We'll be back tomorrow with longer Tall Tales. See you then.